I'm standing in the doorway of my son's house in suburban Philadelphia, and he's screaming at me. Brandon, my 34-year-old boy, the child I raised with every ounce of love I had, is telling me I'm worth less than rubbish. His face is twisted with rage I've never seen before. He shoves me backward, and I stumble on the front step. His wife, Courtney, watches from behind him, her arms crossed, saying nothing. The door slams so hard the windows rattle. I'm 67 years old, and I'm clutching a small leather briefcase. Inside are documents my son doesn't know exist, papers that give me complete legal control over his $8.5 million inheritance. He wanted me gone. As about to learn what that really means. My name is Monty Martinez, and I need to tell you how I got here. This story doesn't start with that slammed door. It starts 42 years ago when I married the love of my life. I was a contractor, nothing fancy. I built decks, remodeled kitchens, fixed roofs. My hands were calloused and my back ached most nights, but I was proud of my work. Helen came from a different world entirely. Her family owned a regional banking business, the kind with marble floors and men in expensive suits. When she told her parents she wanted to marry me, they threatened to cut her off. She married me anyway. We lived in a 3-bedroom row house in northeast Philadelphia. The neighborhood was working class, the kind where everyone knew everyone and you could leave your door unlocked. Helen never complained, not once. She got a job as a school librarian because she loved books and children. We were happy in a way that money can't buy. Brandon was born when I was 33. I remember holding him in the hospital, this tiny, perfect human, and promising him it'd always be there. I worked long hours, came home covered in sawdust and paint, but I never missed his baseball games. I built him a treehouse in our tiny backyard when he was 7. We'd sit up there on summer nights, eating popsicles and counting stars. Those were the best years of my life. When Brandon was 26, Helen started getting sick. At first, it was just fatigue, then pain. The doctors ran tests. Ovarian cancer, stage 3. I took her to every appointment, held her hand through chemotherapy, rubbed her feet when the neuropathy made them burn. She lost her beautiful dark hair. But to me, she was still the most gorgeous woman in the world. During those 2 brutal years, both of Helen's parents passed away. Her father had a heart attack. Her mother followed 6 months later. They left Helen everything. About $12 million. We were in the middle of fighting cancer, and suddenly we had more money than I'd ever imagined. Helen didn't want to spend it on herself. She wanted to make sure Brandon would be taken care of after she was gone. She spent weeks with her attorney. A sharp woman named Grace Palmer who'd handled her family's affairs for decades. Helen set up an irrevocable trust. Brandon would get $500,000 immediately when she died, and the remaining $8.5 million would be held until he turned 35. She thought that age would make him mature enough to handle real wealth. I never cared about the money. I just wanted more time with Helen. But time ran out. She died 6 years ago, 2 weeks after Brandon's 28th birthday. I held her hand as she took her last breath. She looked at me and whispered, "Take care of our boy." I promised her I would. The funeral was the last time I felt close to Brandon. He cried on my shoulder, and we held each other like we had when he was small and had nightmares. For a brief moment, I thought grief would bind us together. I was wrong. Brandon received the first distribution, $500,000, a month after Helen died. I watched him change almost immediately. He quit his job teaching 7th grade history, something Head loved. He said he needed time to process his grief, but he never went back. Instead, he met Courtney at some social event, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that never reached her eyes. They got married 8 months later. I wasn't involved in planning the wedding. I found out the date a week before it happened. They bought a house in a gated community 20 miles from my row house. The place had 6 bedrooms, a 3-car garage, and a swimming pool. Every time I visited, I felt like I needed permission to exist in their space. Brandon grew distant. Dinners got canceled. Phone calls went unreturned. When I did see him, Courtney was always there, steering conversations, checking her watch, making it clear my time was limited. I tried everything to maintain our relationship. I'd show up with containers of Brandon's favorite meals, the ones Helen used to make. I offered to help with yard work or minor repairs around their house. Each gesture was met with polite dismissal or outright annoyance. Courtney would answer the door and say Brandon was busy, even when I could hear the television playing in the background. The loneliness was crushing. I'd go to Helen's grave every Sunday, sit on the grass beside her headstone, and tell her about Brandon. I'd apologize for failing to keep us close. The cemetery became my refuge, the only place I felt like I could be honest about the pain. I sold my construction business 2 years after Helen died. I was 65 and my body was giving out. The work had gotten too hard. I lived modestly on the proceeds and Social Security, keeping Helen's memory alive in the small house Wed shared. Every room held pieces of her. The kitchen where Shed taught Brandon to make pancakes, the living room where Wed watched him open Christmas presents, the bedroom where Wed whispered our dreams to each other in the dark. I kept trying with Brandon. I'd call and leave messages. I'd send cards on his birthday. I'd drive by his house sometimes just to see if his car was there, proof he still existed in my world. The rejection hurt more each time, but I couldn't give up. He was my son, my only child, the last piece of Helen I had left. Then, 3 months ago, everything shifted. Dorothy lived 2 houses down from Brandon. She was 73, attended the same church I did, and had known our family since Brandon was in elementary school. She called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice hesitant. "Monte, I need to tell you something, and I hope I'm not overstepping." My heart started pounding. "What is it, Dorothy?" "I was working in my garden yesterday afternoon. Brandon and Courtney were in their backyard with friends. They were loud, drinking, laughing. I couldn't help but overhear." She paused, and I knew whatever came next would hurt. Brandon was talking about his birthday next year. He turns 35 in March. He was telling everyone about the $8.5 million he's getting. He said it like it was already his, like he was just counting down the days. I closed my eyes. What else did he say? Courtney said something that made everyone laugh. She said once they get the money, they're cutting out all the dead weight. Then she said your name, Monty. She called you that pathetic old man. Brandon didn't correct her. He just laughed along with everyone else. The phone felt heavy in my hand. "Thank you for telling me, Dorothy. I'm sorry, honey. I thought you should know." After we hung up, I sat in my dark living room for 3 hours. The word pathetic echoed in my head. Dead weight. That's what I was to them. An inconvenience, an embarrassment. Something to discard once the money came through. I went upstairs to the bedroom and opened the closet. On the top shelf, in a locked metal box, were documents Grace Palmer had given me after Helen died. I'd looked at them once, then locked them away, hoping I'd never need to examine them closely. That night, I read every page. My 67th birthday fell on a Saturday in late October. I woke up that morning with a small kernel of hope that maybe, just maybe, Brandon would remember. Maybe he'd call. Maybe he'd stop by. It had been 3 weeks since Dorothy's phone call, and I'd been wrestling with what to do about what I'd learned. Part of me wanted to confront Brandon. Part of me wanted to pretend I'd never heard Courtney's words, but it was my birthday, and despite everything, I wanted to believe my son still cared. I waited by the phone all morning. Nothing. I checked my cell phone every 10 minutes. No texts, no missed calls. By noon, the hope had curdled into something bitter in my stomach. I tried to distract myself with television, but I couldn't focus. The silence felt louder than any noise. Around 3 in the afternoon, I made a decision. I'd go to Brandon's house. It'd bring something he loved, try one more time to bridge the distance between us. I spent an hour in the kitchen making lasagna, the recipe Helen had perfected over years of trial and error. Brandon had requested it for every birthday dinner as a kid. The smell of tomatoes, garlic, and basil filled my small kitchen and made me ache for simpler times. I drove to his neighborhood as the sun started its descent. The guard at the gate recognized me and waved me through. As I turned onto Brandon's street, I noticed several cars parked along the curb and in his driveway. Music drifted through the air, punctuated by laughter. My stomach dropped. I parked across the street and sat in my truck, the warm lasagna dish on the passenger seat. Through the windows of Brandon's house, I could see people moving around, shadows and light. A party. There was a party happening, and I hadn't been invited. I told myself maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was a last-minute thing. Maybe Brandon had tried to call and I'd missed it somehow, even though I'd been staring at my phone all day. I picked up the lasagna and walked to the front door. The doorbell seemed too loud. I waited, my heart hammering. Nobody came. I rang again. Still nothing. The music and voices were clearly audible from inside. I walked around the side of the house, following the sounds. The gate to the backyard was unlocked. I pushed it open. The scene that greeted me was like a knife to the chest. 30 or 40 people filled the backyard. A catering company had set up tables with elaborate food displays. A bar was stationed near the pool. A band played on a small stage. String lights hung between trees, giving everything a warm, festive glow. Brandon stood in the center of it all, holding court. He wore an expensive-looking shirt, his hair perfectly styled. Courtney clung to his arm. Her dress probably worth more than my monthly mortgage. He was telling some story, his hands animated, and everyone around him was laughing. He looked happier than I'd seen him in years. I stood by the fence, half hidden by a hedge, holding my ridiculous lasagna. I felt like an intruder, which I suppose I was. This was clearly a private event, but it was my birthday, and my son was throwing a party, and I hadn't even been a thought in his mind. I must have made a noise, or maybe someone saw me, because suddenly the music stopped. Heads turned. The laughter died. Everyone stared at me. Brandon's face went from confusion to recognition to something that looked like anger. He walked toward me, leaving Courtney behind. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I held up the lasagna like an offering. "I made this for you. I thought maybe we could spend some time together. It's my birthday." The words sounded small and pathetic, even to my own ears. Brandon glanced back at his guests, then at me. "Dad, this is a private party. You can't just show up unannounced. I didn't know you were having a party." Courtney appeared at his side. Her smile was sharp. "Monty, this is an adults-only event. It's not really appropriate for you to be here." I looked past them at the crowd. Some people had the decency to look uncomfortable. Others were whispering to each other, clearly enjoying the drama. "What kind of party is it?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would hurt. Brandon shifted his weight. "It's a celebration. My birthday's coming up in a few months. The big 3 to 5. My friends wanted to do something special." "Your birthday is in March. It's October. It's a pre-celebration," Courtney said, her tone suggesting I was being deliberately difficult. "A countdown event. Brandon's life is about to change in a major way, and we wanted to mark the occasion with people who matter." People who matter. The implication hung in the air between us. I looked at my son. "I just wanted to drop off dinner and see how you were doing." One of Brandon's friends, a man in a tailored suit who looked like he'd never done a day of manual labor in his life, stage whispered to the person next to him. "Is that his father? The construction guy? I thought he was dead." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. Brandon heard it. I know he did because his jaw tightened, but he didn't defend me. He didn't tell his friend to shut up or apologize. He just stood there. Courtney took charge. "Monte, I think it's best if you leave. This isn't the time or place." I set the lasagna down on the nearest patio table. My hands were shaking. "I understand. I'm sorry for intruding." I turned and walked back through the gate. Nobody followed me. Nobody called out. The music started up again before I even reached my truck. I sat in the driver's seat for several minutes, trying to control my breathing. Through the fence, I could hear Courtney's voice carrying over the music. "Thank God that's over. Can you imagine if Head stayed? The man has no sense of boundaries." More laughter. I started the truck and drove away, but I couldn't go home. I pulled over into a shopping center parking lot 3 blocks away and just sat there in the darkness. My glove compartment has always been a catch-all for random items: registration, insurance papers, napkins from fast food places. But buried beneath all that, I kept a manila folder. I'd been carrying it around since Helen died, moving it from the house to the truck and back again, never quite ready to deal with what was inside. I pulled it out now. Inside was a letter, Helen's handwriting, shaky from the medications but still recognizably hers. Grace Palmer had given it to me the day after the funeral, along with all the trust documents. I'd read it once, cried so hard I thought I might be sick, then tucked it away. Reading it felt like reopening a wound. But tonight, I needed to hear Helen's voice. The letter was dated 2 weeks before she died. "My dearest Monty, if Grace is giving you this letter, it means I'm gone. I hope I was brave at the end. I hope I told you enough times how much I love you. You are the best man I've ever known, the kindest, most selfless human being I've met in my 60 years on this earth. You gave me a beautiful life, and you gave Brandon a father most kids only dream about. I've set up the trust for Brandon because I want him to be secure. But Monty, I need you to know something important. You're not just a beneficiary. You're the trustee. You have complete discretionary control over whether Brandon receives the funds. I've discussed this extensively with Grace. The trust documents give you full authority to withhold or redirect the money if Brandon ever demonstrates cruelty, abandonment of family values, or disrespect toward you. I pray you never have to use this power. I pray Brandon grows into the man we raised him to be. But if he doesn't, if he hurts you or treats you the way my parents once treated you, like you're beneath him, then you have my blessing to do what's right. The money is meant for family who values family. You'll know what to do when the time comes. I trust you completely. I always have. All my love forever, Helen." I read the letter 3 times in that dark parking lot. Each time, certain phrases jumped out at me. Complete discretionary control. Authority to withhold or redirect. If he hurts you, you have my blessing. Helen had seen this possibility. Even as she was dying, she'd been protecting me. She'd given me a way out if Brandon turned into someone unrecognizable. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the folder. Then I drove home, went straight to my bedroom, and pulled out the locked metal box from the closet. Inside were all the official trust documents. I'd read them once before, but quickly, overwhelmed by grief and legalese. This time, I read every word with a lawyer's focus. Helen had been thorough. The trust named Brandon as the beneficiary, but it also named me as the primary trustee with full discretionary authority. There were specific clauses about my ability to modify or dissolve the trust if certain conditions were met. One of those conditions was a determination that the beneficiary had become unfit due to character deficiencies, including but not limited to cruelty toward family members, abandonment of familial responsibilities, or demonstrated lack of moral integrity. My hands were steady as I read. For 6 years, I'd carried this power without fully understanding it. I'd been so focused on grief, on missing Helen, on trying to maintain a relationship with Brandon, that I hadn't truly absorbed what she'd done. She'd given me control, total control. The question was whether I had the strength to use it. I spent the next 2 months in a state of constant internal debate. The trust documents sat on my kitchen table where I could see them every morning over coffee. Some days, I'd convince myself that Brandon was just going through a phase, that he'd come around. Other days, I'd remember Courtney's voice floating over that backyard party and feel my resolve harden. I made an appointment with Grace Palmer. Her office was in a historic building downtown, all dark wood and leather chairs. She'd aged well. Grace. At 68, she still had the sharp eyes of someone who missed nothing. "Monty," she said warmly, gesturing to a chair across from her massive desk. "It's been too long. How are you managing?" "I've been better," I admitted. I pulled out the folder. I need to understand exactly what Helen set up. Grace's expression shifted to something more serious. "What specifically do you need to know? Can I really stop Brandon from getting the money?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." Helen was very clear about that. "You're the trustee with full discretionary powers. You can modify or dissolve the trust at any time, for any reason you deem appropriate." "What would happen to the money if I dissolved it?" "You'd need to redirect it somewhere. The trust has to serve a charitable purpose if the original beneficiary is removed. We'd set up a foundation or direct the funds to existing charities. You could also allocate a reasonable amount for yourself, given that you're the surviving spouse." I leaned back in the chair. Would Brandon have any legal recourse? Helen anticipated that question. She included language specifically stating that trustee decisions are final and binding. Brandon could try to sue, but he'd have no standing. Helen's mental competency was thoroughly documented. She knew exactly what she was doing. Why did she do it this way? Why not just give him the money outright? Grace folded her hands on the desk. Because Helen knew what money could do to people. She'd watched it happen in her own family. She wanted Brandon to have security, but she didn't want him to become entitled or cruel. And she wanted to protect you, Monty. She told me once that you'd never protect yourself, so she had to do it for you. My eyes burned. She was always smarter than me. "She loved you fiercely," Grace said softly. "Whatever you decide to do, she'd support you. That's what the letter is for, isn't it?" "Permission." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Grace pulled out a legal pad. "If you're considering this seriously, I should draft some preliminary documents. It'll take a few weeks to prepare everything properly. But Monty, I need to be certain this is what you want. Once we file these papers, there's no going back." "I'm not certain yet," I admitted. "I need to see him one more time. I need to give him one last chance." "Then do that," she said. "But Monte, protect your heart. If you go into this hoping he'll suddenly become the son you raised, you're setting yourself up for more pain." I knew she was right, but I couldn't help myself. He was my boy. 2 weeks later, I called Brandon. He answered on the 5th ring, sounding distracted. "Dad, what's up?" "I'm kind of busy. I need to talk to you. Can I come by?" "It'll only take 30 minutes of your time." There was a long pause. "When? Today? This afternoon?" Another pause. I could hear Courtney's voice in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. "Fine," Brandon said eventually. "Come by around 4. But I've got plans at 5, so you really do need to keep it short." I arrived at 4 exactly, carrying a small gift. It was a photo album Helen had made when Brandon was a kid, filled with pictures from his childhood. She'd decorated each page with little notes and drawings. I'd found it in a box in the attic and thought maybe it would remind him of the family we'd been. Brandon opened the door wearing gym clothes, like he was about to head out for a run. "Dad, come in." The house felt cold despite the heater running. We went to his home office, a room filled with expensive furniture and absolutely no personal touches. Everything looked like it came from a catalog. Brandon sat behind his desk, putting a physical barrier between us. I sat in the chair across from him, suddenly feeling like I was being called to the principal's office. "So, what did you need to talk about?" I set the photo album on his desk. "Your mother made this for you. I thought you might want it." He glanced at it but didn't pick it up. "Okay. Is that all?" "Brandon, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He sighed, a sound of pure annoyance. "What? Have I done something to hurt you? Something to make you pull away from me?" His expression didn't change. "Dad, I haven't pulled away. I've just got my own life now. We used to be close. We were close when I was a kid. People grow up, they move on." The words stung, but I pushed forward. "I feel like I've lost you. Your mother would be heartbroken seeing how far apart we've become." Brandon's jaw tightened. "Don't bring Mom into this. She's the reason we're connected. She's the reason. She's dead. Dad." His voice was sharp now. "She's been dead for 6 years. You need to stop using her memory to guilt me into spending time with you." I felt like I'd been slapped. "That's not what I'm doing. Isn't it? Every conversation, you bring her up. Every time you show up uninvited, it's because of something she would have wanted. I'm tired of it." Courtney appeared in the doorway. She must have been listening. "Monte, Brandon and I have been talking about this. You need to understand that we're building a life that doesn't revolve around the past." I looked at her, then back at Brandon. "I'm not the past. You're a reminder of a life I've outgrown," Brandon said, and there was no emotion in his voice. It was like he was reading from a script. "Dad, I know you worked hard. I know you and Mom did your best, but I'm about to enter a completely different phase of my life. In 3 months, I turn 35. Everything changes. Because of the money. Yes, because of the money." He leaned forward. "Do you have any idea what $8.5 million means? It means I can finally live the life I was supposed to have, the life Mom's family lived before she made the mistake of marrying someone beneath her station." The room went silent. Even Courtney looked surprised. "You think your mother marrying me was a mistake?" Brandon had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "I think she would have had an easier life if she'd married someone from her own world. You're a good man, Dad, but you're limited. You'll never understand the kind of opportunities that come with real wealth." I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak. "Your mother chose me. She chose our life together. She never once regretted it." "That's what she told you," Courtney said. "But did you ever wonder what she really thought? She gave up everything to live in that cramped little house with you." I picked up the photo album. Brandon hadn't even opened it. "I should go." "Dad, don't be dramatic." Brandon's tone was exasperated now. "Look, after my birthday, Courtney and I are making some big changes. We're probably moving to California. Starting fresh. I think that'll be good for everyone. You're leaving Philadelphia. We've already picked out the house. Malibu. Ocean views. 4.2 million. We're putting in an offer next week." My mind was reeling. "You're moving across the country. It's time," Courtney said. "Time to leave the old life behind. All of it." The emphasis on all wasn't subtle. I looked at my son, searching for any trace of the boy. Who'd held my hand crossing streets? Who'd run to me crying when he fell off his bike? Who'd told me I was his hero? In his place was a stranger in expensive athletic wear, sitting in a sterile office, talking about cutting ties. "Brandon, the money your mother left was meant to help you, not change you. It's meant to give me the life I deserve, the life I should have always had." I moved toward the door. "I hope you find what you're looking for. I already have." I walked through the house, Courtney trailing behind me. At the front door, I turned back. "Does he know?" I asked her quietly. "Know what?" "That you only care about the money." Her smile was ice cold. "Everybody cares about money, Monty. The difference is I'm honest about it. You pretended you didn't care while you lived off Helen's family name and connections your whole marriage. I never lived off Helen. I worked every day of my life. You worked at poverty wages while she slummed with you. She could have had so much more. I left before I said something I'd regret. I sat in my truck in their driveway for a long time. My hands were shaking. The photo album sat on the passenger seat, rejected and unwanted. I'd come hoping for a conversation, maybe even a reconciliation. Instead, I'd gotten confirmation of my worst fears. My son didn't just not care about me. He actively resented me. He viewed his entire childhood, his mother's choices, and our family as obstacles he'd finally overcome. I drove straight home and called Grace Palmer. "I'm ready," I told her when she answered. "Let's do it." "Are you absolutely certain?" I looked around my small living room. At the couch Helen and I had picked out together. At the wall of family photos, showing a smiling boy who no longer existed. At the life we'd built that our son considered a mistake. "Yes, I'm certain. Do whatever needs to be done." Grace worked quickly. Over the next 3 weeks, she drafted all the necessary paperwork to modify the trust. We met twice in her office to go over every detail. She explained that the modification would do 3 things: remove Brandon as the primary beneficiary, establish a charitable foundation in Helen's name, and provide me with a modest lifetime annuity from the trust's interest earnings. The foundation would fund college scholarships for children of construction workers, support cancer research, and help families who couldn't afford hospice care. It was everything Helen would have loved. "The paperwork will be filed with the court on Monday," Grace told me on a Friday afternoon. "He'll find out when he comes in to sign the distribution papers. Will you tell him? Or should I?" "He'll handle it. You don't need to be there. In fact, I'd recommend you're not. Let me deliver the news, answer his questions, and deal with the initial reaction." I agreed, though part of me wanted to see his face when he learned the truth. The weekend before the filing, I couldn't sleep. I kept second-guessing myself. What if I was being too harsh? What if this destroyed any chance of ever repairing our relationship? But then I'd remember his words. "You're a reminder of a life I've outgrown. Mom made a mistake marrying someone beneath her station. You're worth less than rubbish." That last one he hadn't said yet, but it was coming. I could feel it. On Sunday, I visited Helen's grave. The cemetery was quiet, just wind rustling through the oak trees. I sat on the grass beside her headstone and told her everything. "Helen, I'm doing what you gave me permission to do. I hope you understand. I hope you're not disappointed in me. Brandon isn't the boy we raised. I don't know what happened to him, but he's gone. And I can't keep sacrificing myself for someone who views me as an embarrassment." The wind picked up, and for a moment, I could almost feel her beside me. I imagined her hand in mine, her voice telling me I was doing the right thing. Monday came and went. Tuesday, Wednesday. I waited for the phone to ring, knowing it was only a matter of time. On Thursday afternoon, 3 days before Brandon's 35th birthday, I decided to drive past his house one last time. I'm not sure what I expected to see. Maybe I just needed to confirm I was making the right choice. As I turned onto his street, I saw Brandon's car in the driveway. On impulse, I pulled over and parked. I sat there for a moment, gathering my courage, then walked to his front door. I rang the doorbell. Courtney answered, her face immediately hardening when she saw me. "Monty, what do you want?" "I'd like to speak with Brandon. Hes busy. It's important." She started to close the door, but Brandon appeared behind her. "Dad, what are you doing here? Can we talk?" "Just for a few minutes." He looked annoyed but stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind him so Courtney couldn't hear. "Make it quick." I pulled out the photo album I'd tried to give him before. "I want you to have this. I told you I don't need old photos. Brandon, please, just look at it. Remember who we were." He took it from my hands, opened it to a random page, glanced at a picture of us building his treehouse, then closed it. This is what I'm talking about, Dad. You're always looking backward. I'm looking forward. To the money. To my future. Yes, what if the future doesn't look the way you expect? His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means money doesn't solve everything. It doesn't make you happy. Your mother knew that. My mother wanted me to have security. She wanted me to have opportunities you could never give me. She wanted you to be a good person. That was more important to her than anything else. Brandon's face flushed. Are you saying I'm not a good person? I'm saying you've changed. You've become someone she wouldn't recognize. You don't get to speak for her. I was married to her for 40 years. I think I know what she would have wanted. Courtney opened the door. Is everything okay out here? Brandon handed her the photo album. Throw this away. My heart cracked. Brandon, please. No, Dad. I'm done. I'm done with the guilt trips. I'm done with you showing up uninvited. I'm done with the past. I'm your father. You're someone who happened to raise me. That doesn't give you ownership of my life. I don't want ownership. I just want a relationship. Courtney stepped between us. Monty, you need to leave. You're clearly upsetting Brandon right before his big day. His birthday is 3 days away. When were you planning to tell me about it? Brandon laughed, a harsh sound. Tell you? Why would we tell you? You're not invited. You're never invited to anything anymore. Don't you get that? The words hit like physical blows. I get it, I said quietly. I understand exactly where I stand. Good. Then stop coming around. Stop calling. Just stop. Something inside me snapped. 6 years of grief, rejection, and loneliness boiled over. You know what, Brandon? You're right. Your mother did make a mistake, but it wasn't marrying me. It was not seeing what you'd become. His face went white with rage. Get out. Get off my property. I'm leaving. But before I go, I want you to know something. Everything I did because I loved you. Every sacrifice, every long hour of work, every missed opportunity. It was all for you and your mother. And you've taken all of that and decided it was worthless. It was worthless, Brandon shouted. You gave me a mediocre childhood in a mediocre house with mediocre dreams. Mom's family gave me a real future. Your mother gave you values. Or she tried to. I guess they didn't stick. Brandon grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the driveway. I said, get out. I stumbled, catching myself against my truck. Let go of me. You want to know the truth? Brandon's voice was shaking. The truth is, you're an embarrassment. You're a reminder of everything I'm leaving behind. You're worth less than rubbish, less than trash. At least trash once had value. He shoved me again, harder this time. I fell against the truck's side mirror, pain shooting through my shoulder. Brandon. Courtney's voice held shock, maybe even fear. But Brandon wasn't done. He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. In 3 days, I get $8.5 million. And you know what the first thing I'm going to do is? Cut you out of my life completely. Move to California and never think about you again. I straightened up, my shoulder throbbing. Is that really what you want? It's what I've wanted for years. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing of the child I'd raised. The man standing in front of me was a stranger fueled by greed and cruelty. Then, I hope you get everything you deserve, I said. I climbed into my truck as Brandon stormed back into his house. The door slammed with enough force to shake the frame. Through the window, I could see him and Courtney arguing, her hands gesturing wildly. I drove to the cemetery instead of going home. At Helen's grave, I sat in my truck for a while, just breathing. Then I got out and knelt on the grass beside her headstone. Helen, I tried. I really tried. But he's gone. The boy we raised is gone. The photo album was still on my passenger seat where I'd left it after Brandon rejected it. I'd take it home, put it back in the attic where it belonged. Some memories were meant to stay in the past. I pulled out my phone and called Grace Palmer's cell. Grace, it's Monty. Monty, are you okay? You sound upset. I'm fine. I just need to know. The paperwork is filed, right? It's official. Yes. As of Monday morning, the trust modification is in effect. Brandon has no legal claim to the funds anymore. He doesn't know yet. He's not scheduled to find out until tomorrow. He has an appointment at 10 in the morning to sign the distribution papers. That's when I'll inform him of the changes. Tomorrow. Brandon would learn tomorrow that his entire future had changed. That the money he'd been counting on, planning around, celebrating, was gone. Thank you, Grace. Monty, did something happen? He told me I'm worth less than trash. He physically pushed me. He said once he gets the money, he's cutting me out of his life completely. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then you made the right choice. Helen would be proud of you. I hope so. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The decision was made. The papers were filed. There was no going back. Brandon's 35th birthday was in 3 days, but his life was about to change tomorrow in ways he never anticipated. Friday morning, I woke at 6, which was early even for me. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, watching the clock. Brandon's appointment with Grace was at 10. I imagined him getting ready, showering, choosing an outfit he thought appropriate for a millionaire. Maybe he and Courtney were celebrating already, popping champagne over breakfast. I couldn't eat. I tried toast, but it tasted like cardboard. My stomach was in knots, not from regret, but from anticipation. Part of me felt guilty for what was about to happen. The larger part felt something else entirely. Vindication. At 9:30, I drove to Helen's grave. I needed to be near her when it happened. Needed to feel like she was with me. I sat on the grass beside her headstone and waited. At 10:15, my phone rang. Brandon's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Brandon. What did you do? His voice was raw, somewhere between a scream and a sob. What the hell did you do? I kept my voice steady. Good morning to you too. Don't you dare. The lawyer just told me the trust is gone. She said you dissolved it. Tell me she's lying. She's not lying. You can't do that. That's my money. Mom left it to me. Mom left it in a trust. I was the trustee. The trust documents gave me complete discretionary authority over the funds. There was a long moment of silence, just Brandon's ragged breathing. Discretionary? What does that mean? It means I had the power to decide whether you received the money based on your character and how you treated your family. This is insane. You're insane. You can't just steal $8.5 million. I didn't steal anything. I redirected the funds according to the terms your mother set up. Redirected where? His voice cracked. Where did the money go? It's funding a charitable foundation in your mother's name, the Helen Martinez Memorial Foundation. It's going to help people, Brandon. Real people with real needs. I need it. I have plans. I have commitments. You have a house you can't afford and a wife who only stayed with you because she thought you were getting rich. You're bluffing. This is some kind of sick joke. Call Grace back. She'll confirm everything. The paperwork was filed Monday. It's legal and binding. I'll sue you. I'll take you to court. I'll fight this. Grace says you have no legal standing. Your mother anticipated this possibility. She made sure the trustees' decisions were final. I could hear Courtney's voice in the background, sharp and demanding. There was a scuffling sound, like the phone being grabbed. Monty, you senile old bastard. Courtney's voice was pure venom. Do you have any idea what you've done? We put down deposits. We have contracts. You're going to destroy us. I'm teaching you. Teaching us what? That family isn't disposable. That a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account. That the man who worked with his hands to give his son a good life deserves respect. She screamed something unintelligible. I heard Brandon in the background. Let me talk to him. The phone switched hands again. Dad, please. Brandon's voice had changed. The anger was still there, but now there was desperation underneath. Please, you have to undo this. I'm begging you. I can't undo it. Even if I wanted to, the legal documents are filed. It's done. Then give me the money another way. You control the foundation, right? Just pay me from there. The foundation has strict guidelines. It funds college scholarships for children of construction workers. It supports cancer research. It helps families who can't afford end-of-life care. Your mother would have loved it. I don't care about scholarships. I care about my future. You mean you care about your money? Yes, my money. Mom left it to me. No, Brandon. She left it in my care, with instructions to use it wisely. This is wise. This honors her memory in a way that giving it to you never would. You're punishing me. I'm protecting her legacy. Because of what I said yesterday? Because I told you the truth. Because you told me I'm worth less than trash. Because you shoved me. Because you've spent 6 years treating me like an inconvenience you couldn't wait to discard. His breathing was ragged. Dad, I'm sorry. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. You meant every word. It'll change. It'll do better. Just please, you have to fix this. I can't. And even if I could, I wouldn't. You need to learn something, son. Money doesn't make you better than anyone else. It reveals who you really are. And when you thought you were getting rich, your true self came out. I didn't like what I saw. Courtney was screaming in the background again. I heard something crash, maybe a lamp or vase. My marriage is falling apart, Brandon said, and he sounded genuinely shocked. Your marriage was never real. She loved your bank account, not you. You don't know that. I know she called me pathetic. I know she mocked me in front of your friends. I know she couldn't wait to move across the country and cut me out of your life. She was just trying to protect me from what? A father who loved you, who sacrificed everything for you. The line went quiet, except for muffled voices. Then Brandon spoke again, his voice hollow. So that's it? You're really doing this? It's already done. He'll never forgive you. I can live with that. He hung up. I sat beside Helen's grave, my phone still in my hand, and cried. Not from sadness, exactly. From release. 6 years of holding on, of trying, of hoping, had ended with a phone call. My phone buzzed with texts. Brandon, then Courtney, then Brandon again. I didn't read them. I turned the phone off and sat in the quiet cemetery, feeling more at peace than I had since Helen died. After an hour, I went home. On my porch was the photo album Id tried to give Brandon. He must have had Courtney drive it over. The pages had been torn out and scattered across my front yard. Photos of Brandon's childhood were everywhere. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, Little League games. I spent the afternoon picking them up, one by one, and putting them back in order. Some were damaged beyond repair. Others were salvageable. I worked slowly, carefully, treating each memory with the respect Brandon hadn't. That evening, Grace Palmer called. Monty, I wanted to check on you. Today was difficult. Brandon and Courtney left my office in quite a state. I'm fairly certain they're consulting other attorneys, though I've assured them it's pointless. Let them try. I'm not worried. The foundation paperwork is moving forward. We should be operational within 6 weeks. I've already identified 4 scholarship candidates for the first round. That's good. That's really good. Helen would be proud of you, Monty. I hope so. After we hung up, I made dinner. Something simple. I ate at the kitchen table where Helen and I had shared thousands of meals. The house felt different somehow, lighter, like a weight had been lifted from the walls themselves. I slept well that night. better than I had in years. The next few weeks passed in a strange haze. I didn't hear from Brandon, which was both a relief and a source of unexpected sadness. Despite everything, he was still my son. Some part of me had hoped that losing the money might shock him into re-evaluating his choices. Dorothy called me 2 weeks after Brandon's birthday. "Monty, I thought you should know. There's a for sale sign in front of Brandon's house." My stomach dropped, already. "Went up yesterday," I asked around. "Apparently, they're in some kind of financial trouble." I thanked her and hung up, feeling conflicted. I'd known taking away the trust would have consequences, but I hadn't fully imagined the scope of them. Grace kept me updated on what her legal network was hearing. Brandon and Courtney had consulted 5 different attorneys. Each one had told them the same thing. The trust modification was legal, binding, and uncontestable. Helen's letter, which Grace had shown them, made her intentions crystal clear. One attorney had apparently found documentation of a letter Helen wrote to Grace 2 weeks before she died, explicitly stating that Monty should have complete authority to withhold funds if Brandon demonstrated cruelty or abandonment of family values. The letter was dated, witnessed, and legally airtight. Brandon had no case. The money was gone. According to Grace's sources, Brandon and Courtney's situation deteriorated quickly. They'd made significant purchases, anticipating the trust distribution. The deposit on the Malibu house, 2 luxury cars on lease, expensive furniture on credit. Without the windfall, they couldn't cover any of it. The cars were repossessed, the Malibu deal fell through, and they lost their deposit. Credit card companies started calling. Their house in Philadelphia, which they'd bought with the initial $500,000 Brandon received 6 years ago, went into foreclosure. A month after the trust revelation, Dorothy told me Courtney had moved out. I saw her packing a car at 2 in the morning. She left in a hurry. Brandon hasn't been back to the house since. I felt a complicated mix of satisfaction and sorrow. I'd wanted Brandon to face consequences, but I hadn't wanted to destroy him. The foundation, meanwhile, was taking shape. Grace and I rented a small office space on the 3rd floor of a building near my old construction company. We hired a part-time administrator named Susan, a kind woman in her 50s who'd worked in nonprofit management for decades. The Helen Martinez Memorial Foundation's mission statement read, "To provide educational opportunities for children of skilled tradespeople, support cancer research and hospice care, and honor the memory of a woman who believed everyone deserves dignity and respect." Our first round of scholarships went to 4 high school seniors, children of a plumber, an electrician, a welder, and a roofer. Each scholarship was worth $25,000, renewable for 4 years if the student maintained good grades. The scholarship ceremony was held at a local community center. I met each recipient and their families. The gratitude in their eyes reminded me why I'd made the choice I had. These kids were hardworking, respectful, and appreciative. They valued the opportunity because they understood sacrifice. One father, a man about my age with hands as calloused as mine had once been, shook my hand for a long time. "Mr. Martinez, you don't know what this means. My daughter's going to be the first person in our family to go to college. Because of you and your wife." I had to excuse myself to the restroom to cry. 6 weeks after Brandon's birthday, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Brandon standing on my porch. He looked terrible. Unshaven, thinner than I'd ever seen him, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt that had seen better days. His car, parked at the curb, was a beat-up Honda that had to be 15 years old. "Can I come in?" His voice was barely above a whisper. I stepped aside and let him enter. We went to the living room. Brandon looked around like he was seeing the place for the first time, noticing details Head ignored for years. We sat across from each other, the coffee table between us. "Courtney left me," Brandon said finally. "I heard. She said I was worthless without the money. She said marrying me was the biggest mistake of her life." He laughed bitterly. She called me exactly what I called you, worth less than trash. I didn't respond. What could I say? I lost everything. The house, the cars, everything. My credit is destroyed. I had to move into a studio apartment above a pizza shop. I can barely afford rent. What about work? I got my teaching license reinstated. I'm working as a substitute teacher until a full-time position opens up. It doesn't pay much. It's honest work. He nodded slowly. Yeah, it is. We sat in silence for a while. I came to ask you if there's any way you could reverse what you did. I'd been expecting this. No. His face crumpled. I've lost everything, Dad. Everything. You lost money and things. That's not everything. It feels like everything. I know. But it's not. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Why did you do it? Really? Because you told me I was worth less than trash. Because you pushed me. Because you spent years treating me like I was an embarrassment you couldn't wait to be rid of. I know. I remember. His voice broke. I remember everything I said, everything I did. I've had a lot of time to think about it. And I was wrong. About all of it. You weren't the problem. I was. It was the first time He'd taken real responsibility. What made you realize that? Brandon looked down at his hands. Losing Courtney was part of it. Realizing she never loved me. She just loved what I could give her. But mostly, it was teaching again. I'm working with 7th graders, kids from working-class families like ours was. Their parents are mechanics, nurses, construction workers. They work so hard, and their kids love them so much. He paused, struggling with emotion. Last week, one of my students wrote an essay about his dad. His dad's a carpenter. The kid wrote about watching him work, about how skilled he is, how much pride he takes in building things that last. The kid said his dad is his hero. Brandon looked up at me. I used to think you were my hero too. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that. I started seeing your work as something to be ashamed of, instead of something to be proud of. My throat felt tight. Your mother was proud of what I did. She never once made me feel small. I know. I remember. He wiped his face again. Dad, I can't ask you to forgive me. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked at my son, really looked at him. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement was gone. In their place was something raw and real. Remorse. I believe you, I said quietly. Does that mean there's a chance you could change your mind about the money? No. The money is doing exactly what it should be doing. It's helping people who deserve help. He nodded, looking defeated. I understand. But that doesn't mean I've stopped being your father. His head snapped up. What? I stood and walked to the mantel, where I'd placed a sealed envelope weeks ago. I'd been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. I handed it to Brandon. What is this? A letter from your mother. She made me promise to give it to you only when you truly needed it. His hands shook as he opened it. He tried to read, but tears immediately blurred his vision. He handed it to me. I can't. Will you read it? I sat beside him and read Helen's words aloud. My dearest Brandon, if you're reading this, it means you've learned a hard lesson about money and family. I hope it hurts. I hope it breaks you open, because only broken people can be rebuilt into something better. The trust was never about making you rich. It was about teaching you what matters. Your father is the best man I ever knew. If you've hurt him, spend the rest of your life making it right. Money comes and goes. Character is forever. I believe in the boy we raised. Find him again. Love always, Mom. Brandon collapsed into sobs. His whole body shook. I put my arm around his shoulders, and for the first time in years, he leaned into me the way he had when he was small. We sat like that for a long time, father and son, broken but not beyond repair. "I don't know how to make this right," he said eventually. "You start by being the person your mother believed you could be. How do I do that? You show up, you do the work, you treat people with respect. You remember that your worth isn't in your bank account." He nodded against my shoulder. "Can I ask you something? Anything. Would you let me help with the foundation? Not for money, just to help, to make Mom's legacy mean something." I thought about it. "You'd really want to do that. I can't think of anything more important." "Then yes, we'd be glad to have you." He pulled back and looked at me. "I love you, Dad. I don't think I've said that in years, and I should have. I'm sorry. I love you too, son." It wasn't a complete healing. Years of hurt don't disappear in one conversation. But it was a beginning. 6 months passed, and the world looked entirely different. I'm sitting in the foundation office on a Wednesday afternoon, reviewing scholarship applications for our second round. The space is small but comfortable, filled with donated furniture and walls covered in photos of our scholarship recipients. Sunlight streams through the windows, making everything feel hopeful. The door opens, and Brandon walks in carrying 2 cups of coffee from the shop downstairs. He hands me one without a word, just a small smile. It's become our routine. He volunteers at the foundation 3 days a week between his teaching shifts at the middle school. He's been here for 4 months now, ever since that conversation in my living room. At first, I wasn't sure it would last. I thought maybe it was just guilt driving him, or some lingering hope that I'd change my mind about the money. But as the weeks passed, I realized he was genuinely trying to rebuild himself. He got a full-time teaching position at his old school. The pay is modest, about $45,000 a year, but he shows up every day with enthusiasm. He talks about his students the way he used to talk about baseball when he was a kid, with genuine excitement and pride. His apartment is tiny, a studio above a pizza shop, like he said, but he's made it home. He invited me over for dinner last month. We ate spaghetti at a card table, and he told me stories about his students. One kid, the son of a mechanic, reminds him of himself at that age. Hess mentoring the boy, helping him see that his family's work is honorable. Courtney is gone, completely out of his life. She married someone else, another man with money, just 3 months after leaving Brandon. He saw the wedding announcement on social media and laughed. "Dodged a bullet," he said. And I think he actually meant it. At the foundation, Brandon works with families applying for scholarships. He reviews applications, conducts interviews, and helps us decide who receives awards. He's good at it. He connects with the kids in a way I can't, understanding their dreams and fears because he's been lost himself. We've now awarded 12 scholarships, $48,000 per student over 4 years. 48 lives changed. The foundation has also donated $50,000 to ovarian cancer research at the hospital where Helen was treated, and we've funded a support group for families dealing with terminal illness. Last week, I received a letter from one of our scholarship recipients, a 17-year-old girl named Emma, whose father is a welder. She wrote, "Mr. Martinez, because of your foundation, I'm going to Penn State to study engineering. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. My dad cried when I told him. He said he always worried his job wasn't good enough to give me opportunities. Now he knows it was. Thank you for seeing value in people like us." I read that letter to Brandon. He got quiet for a long time, then said, "That's what Mom wanted, isn't it? For people to feel valued." Yes, exactly that. Every Sunday, Brandon and I visit Helen's grave together. We bring fresh flowers, usually something simple from the grocery store. We tell her about the foundation, about the kids we're helping. I like to think she can hear us, that she's proud of what we've built from the wreckage. One Sunday, standing at her gravestone, Brandon said something he'll never forget. "Dad, I need to tell you something." I looked at him. He was staring at Helen's name carved in granite. "I'm grateful you did what you did. I mean it. If you'd given me that money, I would have destroyed my life completely. I'd have moved to California, burned through millions with Courtney, and ended up alone and empty anyway. You saved me. I didn't do it to save you. I did it to honor your mother. I know, but it saved me anyway." Last night, Brandon and I made dinner together at my house, our house, the place where he grew up. We cooked chicken and vegetables, nothing fancy, just honest food. While we worked, he told me about a student who'd been struggling, how Head stayed after school to help the kid with homework. "The kid's dad picks him up every day," Brandon said. "Has a roofer, always in work clothes, always looks exhausted. But he shows up every single day, and his son runs to him smiling. That's what matters, you know. Not what you do for work, but that you show up." I smiled. "Your mother tried to teach you that. I wish he'd listened sooner." We ate at the kitchen table where Head eaten thousands of meals as a child. The conversation flowed easily, naturally. No awkwardness, no tension. Just a father and son sharing a meal. After dinner, as he was getting ready to leave, he asked me something. "Dad, would you consider making me a permanent part of the foundation? Not just volunteering, but really helping run it. I want this to be what I do with my life. I want to make Mom's legacy mean something." I was surprised, though I shouldn't have been. "You'd really want that. Teaching is important to me. But this feels like my purpose, helping these families, these kids. It feels right in a way nothing else ever has. We can't pay you much. Maybe a small part-time salary eventually, but nothing close to what you'd make in other work. I don't care about that anymore. I care about this." I looked at my son, seeing the man Head become through struggle and loss. "Your mother would love that. Well, figure out how to make it work." His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes for the first time in years. "Thank you, Dad." After he left, I sat in the living room alone, thinking about the journey we'd taken to get here. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. They want to know if I feel guilty for taking away Brandon's inheritance. Some people, when they hear the story, think I was too harsh. The answer is no. I don't regret it. Not for a second. Because I didn't take anything away from Brandon. I gave him something far more valuable than $8.5 million. I gave him the chance to find himself again, to remember who he was before greed and entitlement corrupted him. My wife understood something it took me years to fully grasp. Money reveals character, doesn't build it. When Brandon thought he was getting rich, his true self emerged, and it wasn't pretty. He became cruel, entitled, dismissive. He treated people, including his own father, like obstacles to be removed. When he lost everything, when he hit bottom, he had to make a choice. He could blame everyone else, could spend his life bitter and angry, or he could look in the mirror and change what he saw. He chose change, and that choice saved him. The greatest inheritance we can give our children isn't money. It's values, it's integrity. It's the understanding that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account, but by how they treat the people who love them, by the work they do, by the lives they touch. Brandon and I will never get back the years we lost. 6 years of distance, of hurt, of broken connection. Those years are gone forever. But we have today. We have tomorrow. We have all the days ahead of us to rebuild what we once had. We have the foundation, which helps people who work with their hands and their hearts. We have Helen's memory guiding us, her wisdom woven into everything we do. And we have each other, father and son, imperfect but trying. If there's one thing I want people to understand, it's this. Love isn't about giving people what they want. Sometimes, love means giving them what they need, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Real love makes hard choices. It sets boundaries. It holds people accountable. It says no when necessary, even when saying yes would be easier. I'm 67 years old now, almost 68. I live in the same small row house I've lived in for 40 years. I drive the same old truck I've had for over a decade. My clothes are simple. My life is modest. By society's standards, I'm not rich, but I'm wealthy in the ways that matter. My son calls me every day, sometimes just to talk about his students or the foundation, sometimes just to say hello. He shows up, as present, Hez rebuilding his life with humility and purpose, brick by brick. Every Tuesday, he comes over for dinner. We cook together, eat together, talk about everything and nothing. Those evenings are precious to me in ways I can't fully express. When I see him working with scholarship candidates, watching their faces light up when they realize someone believes in them, I see the boy I raised. I see Helen's son. I see the good man who was always there, just buried under layers of greed and false values. That man is back now, not because of money, but because of its absence. Because losing everything forced him to rebuild from the foundation up, to decide what kind of person he wanted to be. Yesterday, at the foundation office, a 16-year-old boy came in with his father for a scholarship interview. The father was a roofer, hands scarred from years of labor. The son talked about wanting to study architecture, about designing buildings his dad could help construct. After they left, Brandon turned to me with tears in his eyes. "That used to be us, didn't it? I used to be proud of what you did." "Yes, you were. I'm sorry I forgot. You remembered. That's what matters." The foundation is planning to expand next year. We want to add a mentorship program, pairing scholarship recipients with professionals in their fields of interest. We want to create a support network so these kids don't just get money for college but guidance and connection. Brandon is leading that initiative, Hez passionate about it, working nights and weekends to develop the program. Watching him pour himself into something meaningful is one of the greatest joys of my life. Helen's grave is well tended, always with fresh flowers. Sometimes, when I visit alone, I talk to her about Brandon. I tell her he found his way back. I tell her the foundation is everything she would have wanted. I thank her for having the wisdom to protect me, to give me the power to make the hard choice. I imagine her smiling, telling me she always knew I'd do the right thing when the time came. Tomorrow, Brandon and I are interviewing a new scholarship candidate, the daughter of a carpenter. She wants to study medicine, to become the first doctor in her family. Her application essay talked about watching her father build houses, about understanding that all work has dignity. As I prepare for that interview, I think about legacy, not the money kind, but the real kind. The values we pass down, the lessons we teach through action, the love we show by making difficult choices. Brandon will be a father someday, I hope. When that time comes, he'll understand what I did and why. He'll understand that protecting your children sometimes means saying no. That true love is tough and tender in equal measure. For now, we have our work. We have each other. We have Helen's memory lighting our path. That's worth more than $8.5 million. That's worth everything. So let me ask you something, because this isn't just my story. It's a story about every family that's struggled with money, values, and what we owe each other. Have you ever had to make a choice between what someone wanted and what they needed? Have you ever had to show tough love, knowing it might cost you the relationship? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart or made you think about your own family relationships, please consider hitting that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing difficult choices. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message about values, family, and what truly matters, please share this with them. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope it reminds you that your worth isn't in your bank account, that honest work has dignity, and that love sometimes means making the hardest choice of your life. May you find the courage to protect what matters most, even when it costs you everything. May you remember that character is forever, but money comes and goes. And may you always know that showing up with love and integrity is the greatest inheritance you can leave behind. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.